Welcome back. Shifting focus to the other international story playing out in Bangladesh, Prime Minister Narendra Modi said he received a phone call from Muhammad Yunus, the chief advisor of the interim government of Bangladesh. He said the two exchanged views on the prevailing situation in Bangladesh. Prime Minister Modi reiterated India's support for a democratic, stable, peaceful and progressive Bangladesh as well. Prime Minister the Prime Minister said that Muhammad Yunus assured protection, safety and security of all Hindus and minorities in Bangladesh. Sheikh Hasina continues to be in India at an unidentified location in a safe house, and it remains to be seen if Bangladesh will push for her extradition as well. Joining us now to discuss this unprecedented situation, we are joined by Ali Riaz, professor at Illinois State University. Professor Riaz, thank you very much for joining us on the program. Give us a sense of what's happening in your home country in terms of the political transition we're looking at. Yes, that Muhammad Yunus is heading the interim government right now, but as and when they are holding elections, who do you think the dominant force there could be?
Thank you for having me. The election question comes later because at this point, the interim government's primary challenge is to rebuild the Bangladesh state. Because in the past 15 years, under autocratic regime of Sheikh Hasina, they have practically decimated every part of the state. The police force have been made as a henchman, and the administration have been filled with the political loyalists, and all sorts of other institutions are so much shattered that they will have to rebuild it almost from the scratches. So for the interim government, on the one hand is the stability that they're trying to establish, but simultaneously and more importantly, they are trying to rebuild a state that looks like and functioning, because otherwise the election question becomes controversial. Without these changes, there would be a simply similar to what we have seen previously, that would lead to resurgence of the autocratic regime. So there are a lot of other things that they need to address at this point. And then the question of economy, because over the years, this cronyism that has practically weakened the Bangladesh economy, which has a very much great potential. So the challenges are here that they're trying to address first. And then, of course, at some point, there would be a democratic transition through election.
Do you expect the Bangladesh government, because they have accused her in police complaints, accusing her of murder in at least 2 or 3 cases, and also torture, incarceration of political opponents. Do you think it's possible for the Bangladeshi government, even the interim government, to seek her extradition from India?
They should. As a matter of fact, not only the murder and other things that you have mentioned, over the last weeks, before her downfall on 5th of August, Prime Minister Hasina, then Prime Minister Hasina, and her regime has committed crimes against humanity, because we have seen how the people have been tortured. There have been issues of extrajudicial killing, not to mention enforced disappearance, which is under Rome Statute, is a crime against humanity. And then you see from the middle of July, hundreds and hundreds of people have been killed in broad daylight. All these things actually constitutes crimes against humanity. On the one hand, there are charges, there are allegations, and cases have been filed against specific murders. But the government, I think, should pursue against Sheikh Hasina crimes against humanity, if it is within the country or beyond. And with respect to this extradition, 2016, there has been a treaty between India and Bangladesh, which allows Bangladesh government to request her that she be transferred to Bangladesh to face the justice.
Right. I would also like to ask you, do you think the sentiment on the ground in Bangladesh is turning anti-India? Because we have been getting a lot of reports, and this is what the government is also concerned about attacks and threats to minority groups, including Hindus in Bangladesh. In fact, Muhammad Yunus, the head of the interim government, has also met representatives of Hindu groups in Bangladesh. Do you think that is an actual legitimate concern, and this is happening as a result of anger against India?
So this conflation that anti-Indian and anti-Hindu is the same thing, I tend to disagree with you. Most importantly, if we separate these two things, as whether there have been attacks on the Hindus, there have been incidents of the attacks on Hindus for several reasons, not only as a religious point of view, because some of these Hindus, like other Awami Leaguers, those who belong to Muslim community, have been attacked. I'm not condoning them; those are not acceptable. But that's had happened. The attacks on Hindu, which didn't happen in the last 72 years. There has been no incident of as such. Initially, after 5th of August, there have been. With respect to the sentiment against India, it is not growing. It has grown over the last 15 years, particularly last 10 years, given the India's role of supporting an autocratic regime, unqualified support. There is no plea from New Delhi, and it has worked with, not only worked, there are legitimate concern and legitimate demands of the Bangladeshis, for example, water sharing. Those things have been completely ignored by the Indian government. Those are the things have turned the sentiment against India, and it has been there for quite some time. What you see now is an expression, not only through after 5th of August, going into 5th of August, we have seen Bangladeshis expected that the India people and as well as Indian government would take into account the concerns of the Bangladeshis and would not support an autocratic regime in such a manner which is engaged in human rights violation. But Indian government didn't do it. So that became an issue, not to mention all sorts of unequal treaties that have been signed under Prime Minister Hasina. Those are the concerns the Bangladeshis have. With respect to the attacks on Hindus, I condemn, as Professor Yunus has done, and it has subsided. But there are not only a religious element, there are political issues with respect to those attacks that cannot be simply ignored.
All right. Thank you very much, Professor Riaz, for joining us to speak about what's been happening in your country, Bangladesh, a very critical neighbor for India. And of course, whatever is happening there will be a cause for concern as well. With that, it's a wrap on this edition of Global Eye. We will keep getting you more updates on what's happening internationally. But for the moment, thank you for watching. Stay tuned to CNBC-TV18. The news continues on the other side.